I run a community of over 3,000 commercial investors, and I interviewed 55 of them one on one and asked what they felt they needed to get started and what was holding them back. What was the obstacle in the way? The vast majority had heard from so called experts that they needed a big ad budget, they needed fancy software, and a deep network of money partners. They were also told they had to man up and make cold calls to off market owners. Those things can help experienced investors for sure, but it's a terrible approach for a beginner. You'd lose your mind and all your money and the shirt off your back. As a new investor, you haven't had the chance to build a large network of cash buyers, contractors, and agents to work with yet. You probably also don't have the budget to spend between 10 and 20 grand every single month on mail pieces and advanced software tools. And you don't have the confidence to call off-market owners out of the blue and ask them if they're open to selling their property. In this video, I'm going to break down just the 3 simple actions that beginners can take to get their first deal under their belt. I'd also explain why I suggest starting with small multifamily instead of single-family houses. And so what I define as small multifamily, is between 5 and 15 units. Properties that are between 1 and 4 units, these are considered residential. So you can almost kind of air quote that is considered residential. And anything that's 5 plus kind of gives this definition of commercial, right? And so don't let the word commercial intimidate you. That's exactly why most people skip over these deals, because they assume it's only for the big players. Now, to be clear, I'm not against duplexes and triplexes or quadplexes, right? If you find those, absolutely great. But our main target is going to be between 5 and 15 units, because you can just scale so much faster with these. And so why not single family? That will become clear once you learn the 3 action steps I suggest for new investors. So starting off with step number 1, you want to decide on your market. Choosing the right market is absolutely critical, because this is where you'll be operating for a long time. You don't want to bounce around. Virginia 1 month, Corpus Christi, Texas the next, and then maybe Las Vegas after that. That's one of the biggest mistakes that we find new beginners making, is hopping around, kind of getting shiny object syndrome. You want to learn the economic activity of the area. Where are the opportunities? Real estate moves slowly compared to other markets, and this gives you time to see where the growth is happening. So is a new public transportation coming through? Is there a new interstate being built? Is there an airport expansion, or maybe a new gigafactory coming down the street? These projects tell you where the growth is headed. They're forecasted for you. And remember, location is the one thing in real estate that you cannot change about a property. So knowing an area well is a huge advantage. So you want to start with a market that you already know, if at all possible. So where you live, where you went to school, where your family's from, or where you're vacation to, something that you know the city ahead of time. The hardest part is learning a brand new market from scratch. So now, what if you live in an expensive place like San Francisco or Miami and New York City, and you don't know any other cities? Well, not a problem. I built a real estate market analysis tool to help you research and identify the best market tool, and I'll link that in the description below so you can go use it. So moving on to action number 2 is you want to learn how to filter your list. So you want to pull a list of on-market properties from Crexi.com. If you've never used this before, it's like Zillow, but for commercial properties. And so a lot of gurus will tell you to start off with off-market properties. And we love off-market deals, properties that are not listed and the seller hasn't advertised yet they want to sell. But for beginners, that's a really tough place to start. It means making like 1 to 200 calls, hoping to get 10 people on the phone, getting hung up on 5 times, probably being cussed out twice, and maybe landing 1 promising lead out of all those calls. And that's a really rough first week, and that's how every week's going to go. So unless you're a full-time investor or you have a sales team, that's just really not practical or realistic. That's why I recommend starting with brokers. Yes, calling brokers can be intimidating too, but it's way easier than calling random people off the internet. And the good thing about brokers is they're actually expecting you to call them. This gives you a kind of more at-bats faster with less friction. So cold calling owners can absolutely work, don't get me wrong, but it takes hundreds of calls to get maybe one possible lead. Now with brokers, it still takes dozens of calls to find motivated sellers, but it's much more manageable for a beginner. So create your list on Crexi.com, and I'll show you an example from North Carolina and Virginia on screen here. So I'm going to Crexi.com, so CREXI.com. Go ahead and hit enter. And so let's just start with Virginia. Just choose that as a random example. And let's just see how many listed properties there are on Crexi. So listed commercial properties on Crexi.com is 3,600. And so it's a little bit too big of a list, but that includes every possible type of commercial property in the entire state of Virginia that is for sale. So let's go to filters, and we click on multifamily and just pick apartment building. And show this list of 122 listings. Okay, great. Well, remember, we want to do 5 to 50, okay? So we want to come down here, and we're going to do max units of 50. I don't filter out duplexes and quads. If I find a quad in here, I'm not upset. That's fine. If it's a good deal, it's a good deal. But I do want to limit it to 50. So notice that limited down to 41 listings. And so let's say maybe that's a little bit too small of a list. We think we can get through the list of 41 pretty fast. We might add another state. Like maybe you also want North Carolina. We'll just add that one in there. And so now it does the same filter on both states that are contiguous to each other. And now we have about 100 listings to work through. And so what we're going to do is we're going to contact each one of these listings and see if we can get a deal done. And you see how some of these are unpriced? That's really annoying, but go ahead and call it anyway. And so what you do is you call them up and you say, hey, I see the property's listed. What pricing did you have in mind? And a lot of times they'll just tell you. And so I don't know why they play this game of putting up their unpriced. It's kind of silly. And so let's look at this 16 unit one here from Fayetteville, North Carolina, just as an example. Okay, I found one I want to use. Okay, so I've scrolled through here and I found several properties. Notice there's several 4 units here. Go ahead and talk to them. I am not opposed to going on 4 units. That's why we don't exclude the 2 through 4 units, because they're out here as well. But I'm going to look at this 13 unit that popped up right here. I kind of like the look of this and want to point something out to you. Notice they give you the NOI, the net operating income, and they want to sell it for 2.5. And so every Crexi property every listing has a valuation calculator built in right here. And I use it all the time. And so what you do is it plugs it in for you. It takes the NOI that they give you, the purchase price, and based on market rates right now for a 30% down loan, 7% interest in 30 years, you would get a negative 1.26 return on investment. And I'll come back to this in just a second. So notice this is how you go to Crexi and you pull your list. So this is action number 2, pull your list. Now you have a list of people to go and call. So when you call them, what are you supposed to say? You pull up this listing and there's Sam here, and Sam provides a phone number. What are you supposed to say to Sam when he answers the phone? Well, let me walk you through it. And so here's the big insight here. Don't waste a ton of time going through all these pictures and analyzing a whole bunch of details about it. Don't create some sort of fanciful scenario in your head where you can picture yourself owning this property and now you fall in love with the property. That's the last thing you want to do. You want to call first, and you want to see if the seller is open to a discount or some sort of creative terms. If not, then you just say next. They're just not your seller. And so here's the basic script, and I'll walk you through what I'm talking about. So what we do is we call up Sam, and we have just this in front of us, and we say, hey, Sam, is this property that you have here on 3818 Highland or 318 Highland Street, is it still available? He says, yes, it is. I said, okay, great. Why is this seller selling? What's going on? Oh, well, the seller owns this property and they've had it for a while and they're really just ready to move on. Okay, well, great. I see some pictures here, but I just want to know, based on your experience, what's the property's condition? They say, well, the property's in good condition. I was like, okay, great. Dig a little deeper. Your definition of good might be different. I said, okay, well, what do you mean by good? Oh, they've freshly rehabbed the property. It's been updated. Everything's Not so. When was the last time the roof was replaced? When was the last time the HVAC units were replaced? And I said those are all fresh. The roof is 2 years old. Most of the HVAC units have been replaced, and each of the units has been updated. Great. So have you seen the property yourself? Turns out, yes, I have. Now, what you'd be surprised by is about 80% of the time, the listing agent has not seen the property. They have no idea about the property. They've never seen it. And you want to check on that because if you're using their information about the property's condition, they've never been there, then I would be suspect. I would still go ahead and look at the deal, but I just want to know if what they're telling me is based on actual experience or they're just like making stuff up. And so I say, okay, based on what I'm seeing here, you're saying the NOI is 130 grand. Is that pro forma or is that actuals? And if they say actuals, then you can use it. If they say it's pro forma, okay, do you have actuals from the net operating income for the last 12 months? And so once you're on the phone with them, you want to take the actual NOI from the last 12 months and you want to plug it into this calculator. And I will say, hey, Sam, based on the 2.5 purchase price, I put in a net operating income of $130,000 or so. And that gives me about a down payment requirement of 750 grand based on a 30% down payment with the interest rates today about 7%. That would give me a negative return of 1.26%. And you'd say, that just doesn't work for us. And I don't think it'll work for any of the other investors either. Have you had that conversation with your seller? I mean, have you gotten feedback from the marketplace that the price is too high for what your NOI is? The seller or the numbers you're telling me make it such that this doesn't make sense. Have you gotten other offers? And a lot of times the broker will just divulge and say, yes, we have other offers. Here's what's going on. And the seller will not budge off his price. And so you say, okay, here's how we buy properties. We usually buy properties in one of three ways. The first way is we can buy the property at a deep discount and we can buy the property, cash the seller out, but it's got to be at a discount where it makes sense for us. So we can't give them their price, but we can give them their terms. Or we can take on seller financing where we give them their price, but they're willing to take payments over time. Do you know if your seller would be open to either one of those scenarios? You hear what they say. A lot of times they'll say, well, I haven't even asked the seller. Okay, well, is that something you would mind asking the seller? Because that's the only way we can figure out a way to make this work. Or sometimes the broker will say, yeah, they're stuck on their price of 2.5. They've told me for sure, no seller financing. Oh, really? No seller. Did they tell you why? Yeah, they want to sell. They're moving out of the country. They don't want to be attached to this property whatsoever. They won't accept any financing terms. We've had several offers that have offered financing and they just shut it down. They will not consider it. Okay, great. Well, based on what I'm hearing, I'm not sure this is a good project for us. It's not for everybody. By any chance, do you have something else on the market that we can look at, or do you have any kind of pocket listings in the development that you'd be willing to share? And so this is how you build your broker's network. When you make a phone call, a lot of times it's not about the deal that's on the screen. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But a lot of times you're trying to develop a relationship with your broker to get access to their network of deals. And if you do this enough, brokers will start sending you more deals than you have time or can even begin to process. And it just takes a little while to develop that. And also, the more you make these calls, the better you'll get at doing them. And so we refer to this as getting the marbles out of your mouth. Like you want to get comfortable doing these calls. And later on, if you want to try off-market cold calling, you can. But for now, as a beginner, you want to master this skill. And so you remember I said, I'm going to share with you why not single family. Well, let me put it to you this way. Do you enjoy going through the TSA security at airport, the long lines, having to take your shoes off, the body scans, the rules are constantly changing, and then the chaos of the crowded terminals? It's exhausting. It takes all the fun out of traveling. So wouldn't it be nice if you could just fly private? But the problem is it's just too expensive. You just don't have a private plane. Well, there's actually a middle ground called semi-private. And airlines like JSX Airlines based out of Dallas let you fly 20 to 30 passengers, no TSA, you can bring your dog on, and the rates are comparable to commercial airlines. You show up about 10 minutes before your flight, and you hop on, no hassle. It's this hidden option most people don't know about. It's hidden in plain sight. Well, small multifamily is just like this. You see, most people are stuck in this single family TSA line. It's where all the masses are. The wealthy 1% are flying around in private planes and buying 200 unit apartment complexes. Well, the savvy few are flying semi-private with these 5 to 50 units. And that's where we want to be. When I started, I bought 40 single family houses in about 3.5 years, and it was absolutely exhausting. And then I realized I could buy a 6 unit here, 12 unit there, and then build my portfolio up way faster. And I could use the same creative strategies, but I was able to scale my portfolio 5 to 10 times faster. And just last week, I was on the phone about an 18 unit property that we might be putting under contract using this same strategy. The owner has moved overseas. He's like 8 time zones away, and he's selling his whole small multifamily property. And guess who's in line to buy them? So if you're ready to skip to the front of the line and get help from me, book a time on my calendar. One of my team members will have a chat with you. We'll help you evaluate if you're a good fit for us to work together. And that link is in the description below. And now that you know how small multifamily is the best place to start, watch this video right here where I explain in much more detail why buying houses is the worst strategy for new investors.